All right, we're going to begin restorative practice. And what I like you to have is your bolster is horizontal. We're going to start with a horizontal chest opener. A block is right in front of the bolster. So if you have wall space, you want that nearby. And if you don't right now, we will use it about 40% into the class. We're going to go to the wall. So you'll need to have that somehow set up. Well, you don't need to set up a wall. It just needs to be there without pictures above. So sit on the firm block, and we're going to focus here when we lower back that my rear is on the block. That's a good point for this one. My like the eyebrows of the buttocks are on the bolster. And then when I lower back happily to let my head rest on the blanket, consider this a headrest. Right, with the blanket. Now, if you bulk it up and you add the two, which we've done many times, you'll notice that it kind of creates more of this curve in the upper spine, which we really don't want to focus into creating more of, right? So I want you to find that you have some length in the neck, maybe even touch your neck space, that back space, and feel if your head nods side to side, that you actually can rest your head on that blanket. Okay. Now you're going to stretch the legs down, and if you do touch the wall, that's fine. I just don't want your knees to bend a lot. So if you like to bend the knees on this position, that's completely fine. Some find that's better for their back muscles. It's easier, I think, if you bend the knees, but I'm going to offer these two different formulas with sand. So you can have the sand across the ribs, okay? You can also let the legs stretch down and have the sand on the upper thighs. You know, I'm so used to doing this version with sand at the thighs that when I tried the version on the ribs, I was sort of surprised. I hadn't done that in so long. So it might be nice for you to, change them up. Maybe in a minute you move the sand up or the sand lower. But let's kind of dive inwards. So stretch out the chest, let the arms flow open. If you're feeling like this is unusual and strange in the neck, you can always add that other blanket underneath. If you decide it just feels like there's not enough support, you can bulk it up. That feels actually somewhat good, but I want to keep working on my neck not rounding. So I'm going to stay with this. But you may do either. With the arms in this open experience for the chest, let your eyes close and begin emphasizing the movement cycle of your breath. Now, feeling what you need to kind of settle if something's not quite comfortable about the situation, maybe the leg position. You might have to bring your feet a little bit farther apart or bend your knees. What I want you to emphasize is that you're opening the chest. So whatever that means, not hurting your back, not creating more pressure, but with the cycle of breath, you start to create circulation, not just in the breathing cycle, but actually in the respiratory muscles. So alternate through the inhale through the nose, exhaling out, letting go. And simply feeling how the abdominals move. And the movement of the abdominals, of course, is lower than the ribs. And with your ribs pushed up on the bolster, it's fascinating, right, to feel that three-dimensional motion with ribs, but also trying to detect that in the abdominals. So not just like pushing the breath down to the navel area and like bulking up, like ballooning, but first visualize that it spans outwards. So you're massaging more than just kind of bulging the belly area. You want to spread the breathing right throughout. Now take another few moments of perspective of the simple expansion in the chest. And I want you to keep that horizontal span. So think of this almost, it's funny, this is like a bridge pose, sort of is a bridge pose, but you're not really efforting like to keep the hips up. They're already placed up. The props are enhancing that event. So now if you have sand on, you're going to slide all of it off. So sand free. And let's take the right ankle and lift and cross it to the left knee. And then let that right knee, well, obviously the whole thigh is part of it too, the right leg, but it's going to release out. And of course, it's hooked up to the rest of the leg. So lucky you, right? The connection is maybe slight in the hip, but I want you to just get a feel for this one side and just stay with the one side for a little bit longer. Okay, you could spend energy noticing, we could address all the things we noticed, but pure and simple, ribs still open, right thigh is kind of on the radar right here, what we're doing, starting to motion into the right leg. See if you can flex your right foot, so just pull the toes towards the shin. Let the belly move with the breath. Relax the right ankle, foot, and then as the knee pulls back in towards center, like you let the knee move towards your rib cage, feel how the left knee is bending and the foot centers down, and the right thigh drawing in, that right side of the waist, and then step the right foot down and then change sides. And I like to be kind of slow, so I feel that when the left leg kind of migrates over to the right knee, I can feel my right foot push. I can feel my hips sink down towards the block. I lift the left leg, and then I make a choice. Basically, I know I'm getting my left ankle to my right knee, but when I cross that ankle over, just see what happens when you hook the ankle, and then we might just kind of flop the left leg out, but kind of work in a pattern where you expect yourself to feel restricted in some of the ranges, even if you're pretty flexible, and just go a little bit back, don't go too far. See how you aim into the position. I'm sure the second side is a little different than the first side. It might not just be the leg parts, it might be how your hip parts balance. So we have both, frontal hip bones aiming towards the ceiling. Yeah, it's all different. I mean, we probably haven't taken this exact circuit before, but we're going to try it. So if your right hip is trying to pull up a little higher, I want you to really work on keeping this bolster to support you. You don't have to do anything with the bolster, it just stays there. It just lays there. But you're kind of laying there too, right? Letting the prop support and enhance this circulation. In some ways, it's the circuit, right? We're in the restorative circuit. Okay. Now, just kind of visualize that your right foot is down. That's not visualization, that's true. But as if your right knee could actually stabilize and actively kind of move away from your hip, right? So I know it's hard to do that because your foot is down, but just aim that right knee away from the hip. It's got to be a visualization. I mean, it might actually be happening in threads. Okay, just aim it away. And then as you come out of this one, you're going to keep the leg habit the same. It's just that we're going to have our feet together. So careful consideration. Bring the left knee towards the rib cage, uncross the left leg from the right leg. And then if you want to, kind of flick your foot up, that's fine. Of course, it's so nice to be at home because you can do just about anything you want to do with the positionings, sounds, or anything, right? We'll find out if we're really muted or not, huh? Okay, so press down into your right foot and then lower the left foot to the right foot and then connect into cobbler's pose, feet together, knees out. Yeah, this is definitely a bountiful position, right? So there's a surplus of circulation now through the ribs, the lower core, the pelvic floor, right? Okay, let's see where we can go with this. We're gonna let the arms reach back overhead. Now, one blanket under your head. Okay, it does make it a little challenging, I have to admit, slightly more than 2 blankets. So just let the arms flow back. If you have 2 blankets, it's fine under your head or one behind. And then feel if you can get the hands to reach around towards the elbows. So it's a elbow crisscross position. It's whichever arm is on top is fine. You be the decider here. Okay, now feel when you hold onto the elbows, if this is too much, do not do it. You can always let the arms flow straight back. Okay, it could be arms back or hands holding. But just notice the breath. It might stiffen up when your arms reach together. It sometimes selectively tightens, but it also can grow wider in the rib. So here's where we're going to go with it. Feel the feet push together. Okay, and then let the feet solid step down. So you're going to wiggle the feet so the bottoms of the feet are pressing to the ground. I want you to just wriggle a little bit of movement here in the back of the pelvis. So push down into your feet and then move the tail like you're trying to reach the back of the pelvis, tucking the tailbone under a little bit. Push down into your feet. See if you can do it, just a mild lift of the back of the pelvis so that you're not pushing into the block anymore. It might be touchable, but it's not pushable. Touchable, but not pushable. Okay. All right, it might stiffen up into the ribs here. Relax the grip on the elbows. Let the arms flow open. And then you're going to lean to the left. Knees swerve left. You're going to move the block. I would just put it back overhead. And then roll out to the left side. And let's take a side sage. Okay, so I want you to get a ball or whatever wad that you put on the inside of the right leg. Or first things first, I guess. Let's set up the blankies. So we got a couple blankets to use on this for certain. I want you to add 2 together, okay? Hold them in close enough to your arm so that your arm is between the bolster and the blanket stack. Then you've got your block behind you, and I would put it as high as you need. If you know your shoulder's a little bit, it doesn't enjoy the straight overhead approach. You could put the block over to the right side when you look back. That'll be a little easier on your shoulder joint. Okay, then the sand comes back. Okay, so sand goes up onto the outer right side. Now that means anywhere on the side, right? So take a moment to adjust whatever you need to. And you can add your sand so it is side support. Okay, think of it as, if the props under you are supporting you, but the props over you, which is usually just a sandbag, isn't it? Can't think of anything else we put on ourselves except maybe a belt, but that's kind of different, huh? So maybe not. But I'm going to add my ball on the inside of my right knee. I like that support. Okay. Now, when my leg rests into the ball, or if you have something else you use, a block or some towels, and then you're going to line up so the range of the waist in the arm, pit, chest reaches. Okay, so if you're lengthening that right arm, You can wander with it open towards the ceiling. Remember, your head is resting on your blankets. Okay, and then once that right arm lands, if it lands and you push down a little bit, you can tell that when the arm is reaching, there's cycles of sort of strain, right? There's efforting, there's toning. So I want you to try to get the right hand to actually touch onto something. Now this could be overhead, okay? Some of us, straight overhead works, but remember, you decide if it's too much. You can also let the arm be on the side of your body on your sand. And then start to sink into the option here of supporting your breathing muscles, but even more so, the side body stretches. These are so good for our back. I love side body long. Okay, if your neck is feeling tight, maybe having your chin towards the ceiling doesn't work. Some of us might have to actually turn so our ear really kind of smushes into the blanket. Ear smush. All right, and then experience breath. The movement of it, it's such a movement inside. And just feel that basic weight of your body. And notice how the pure weight is actually a way to feel more on the opposite side, right? So my left side is heavy and my right side feels the breath. I guess both sides feel it. But I also am exploring creating just pure length on that right side. And if your arm starts to get tired, it could occur. You could let that arm now rest on the side. Just make time to be present and slow. Okay, now when we come out, we've got one emphasis here. So you let the sand slough off. And when you move the right arm open to the right, so behind you, I kind of feel what the movement of twisting is here. So if this is too much pressure for the shoulder, you can always have your right hand on your ribs and still feel the movement span. It's pretty interesting to have your hand on the ribs and try to create this twist with your head still on the blankets. Okay, so now as you let the ribs, let them roll to the left like there wasn't a floor and you're twisting into whatever's below you, which looks like a floor probably. So you're going to come up, and when you come up, take a moment when you're twisting. Now, if your ball is kind of stuck somewhere, it's probably going to be okay, but you're going to still twist towards the blankets. Okay, your weight is on the left upper thigh, outside of that thigh. Feel the turn in the torso. Okay, and then come back to away from their bolster, facing towards the wall perhaps, but to the base of your mat. And I want you to take your belt, and it should be buckled up. So you want to buckle it up so it's that big loop. May as well make it really big because you never know how much support you're going to need. And then once it's looped up, all connected, you'll place it around your torso, overhead and around the torso. And then I'm just going to nudge my bolster back to my blankets because I don't really need it in my way here. I want a little more space. And then what I'll do is take the belt, the whole belt, it's going to go around me. And then I probably find it easier to be kind of rib with the belt, then to my feet, around the bottoms of the feet, on the sides of the knees. Okay, that's usually a problem with this one. People will have it inside the knees, but the side of the knees. And then see if you can sit with that position. So the belt is around my ribs, upper. Well, I guess upper's up here, but so the rib chamber. Okay, so feel where your belt is on the bottoms of the feet. And then notice when you lean back, okay, is the belt high enough under your, around your back? So if you need to bring it higher up, the armpits is about your edge, isn't it? You can't really go higher than that. Although you could bring it around your shoulders. You could take it on the side. Now I want you to have enough, so my knees are apart. This makes it a little easier on my, I mean, there's no bones in the belly, I know, but I think of it as belly bones. It makes it a little easier on my abdominals to relax. But you know what, this is abdominal work. So I'm going to lean back, hold my belt, and then I'm going to remember your belt might need to be looser than it is. You might have to loosen it up. I want you to find that you have movement, you got room with the length of the belt. So I want you to alternate a little bit of bend. That means creasing at the knees and then straightening the legs out. Do this so that you're kind of jostling the tissues a bit. My weight is not on my tailbone per se. It's not all the way back on the coccyx. So I'm kind of feeling my seat, you know, not sitting bones only, but I'm actually finding this to be a little better way to do this pose. So I'm playing with it, learning, re-educating myself. The only part that I don't like how it feels is my feet, the bones. It kind of pushes the sides a little much. So if you wear socks, it can be a little easier. But when you push into your belt, hold the belt if you need, don't hold it if you don't. Okay, take what you need. Okay, give away what you don't here. And then lengthen out the back of the legs. Again, if you're really shaky, your belt needs to be tighter. You need to shorten it up. So I like to push it out a little bit so I have some work to lean back. I got a bolster. This is nice. I can nudge it with my elbows if I feel like it, you know, but arms go forward. Yeah, so give it a try. Good. Yeah, if you feel like you're kind of, you're in a bit of a challenge, it ought to be somewhat challenging, right? All things considered, vulnerable tissues to strengthen in the core. Okay, this is definitely not something you're probably doing often during the day. On your off moments, maybe you try this. All right, in your awful moments, huh? This is a good one. So when you bring your elbows out to the side, like you're branching out through the ribs, the collarbones, bend through the knees, push into the belt, like you're trying to test this buckle, test it. Push into the belt, hopefully it stays connected, and then hold onto the belt with the hands. Bending, bending, lower down. I want you to hover over the ground, right? Hover for a few moments with the heels. You decide how low you go with the heels. Inhale, hold the belt. Exhale, push and let the legs lift a little bit up. So you're in a piped position. And then bend through the legs. Okay, let's give it a couple more at your own pace. You know, for me, my elbows are on the bolster, but it's different for everybody's length. So it's only probably for short meat, but you might have your elbows, you might be wanting to take your hands farther down on the belt so you don't have to touch your bolster. Probably not everybody likes to. I just happen to. Okay, now last time when you lift up, I want you to push so firm into the belt that it takes away some of this kind of fire in the hip flexors. So push. So use the pressure so that even the lower abdominals feel some effort to push. And then let's try it without the belt and see if we can make any headway to that. So you'll bend through the legs, the lower, and then I would just take the belt off, pure and simple. I would keep it buckled because we might use it later, but you can always buckle it up. And then scoop up underneath the legs. You're gonna actually reach the hands under so the hands are between the knees, like so. You're gonna scoop up so the hands are between the knees to that position of palm to palm, palm to palm. Lean back. If you got a bolster, it's kind of nice to lean into it a little bit. And then just spend a moment here. Lift the feet. Notice that there's a little bit of work ahead. My palms don't stay pushing together, by the way. The hands kind of push away right as the feet lift up. Now lower the heels down. See if you can lean a little forward, the palms together, stretching out your back. Okay. And then hold just the underside of the legs. Lean back. I don't want you to lift your feet off the ground here. Maybe your toes, but not your heels. Lean back. Inhale up. I know that we do this together because it's the only time we're going to do this, right? Together. Exhale back, breathe. All right, so let's lean back, hold the backs of the legs. Inhale to stay back. Exhale, try to feel movement in the abdominals. And then inhale up. And relax your feet down all the way, toes and all. And then let's come to side sage on the other side. Okay, so to the right we go. Hooray for that, getting out of that whole thing, huh? Push the bolster close to you, or pull it in, push the blankets away. And then again, the block overhead, I know I like something easier on my shoulder, so I'm gonna move the block to the left side. And I need a ball and a sandbag, so the inside of the left leg goes the ball. And then, the bolster kind of, it moves on its own, doesn't it, with this one? So when you lean down, the bolster you do want to have this alignment of your props. It's easier to align your props than yourself. I mean, they're not animated objects. So, okay, this is not an animated piece here. So when I lean down, I really try to keep it horizontal. Okay, lean my ribs into it. It worked out pretty well there. Yeah, you got to use your focus to bring some discipline to it. And then when you lean in, if you feel, oh, okay, maybe you got some things to do to get there. So it may not be already kind of there for you to pose. You might have to fuss around. So do your fussing, right? Feel where the weight is onto that right hip. You want this to be weight bearing. Feel where the support is on the left side. And then that left arm is reaching. It's okay to make it easier on your shoulder. It really is okay. So maybe you can push it straight back, but you feel like the muscular tension is just full on there. So you might go a little less for now. You can always try that some days. So lean your head down, let it go. Breathe. Yeah, hopefully you're making it into side sage now. So this is that side body long stretch. Just feel the weight of your body into the bolster. Breathing slow. Now, even though you're on your side, can you move the ribs like they're gills, right? So you want to work your gills here. So the ribs express motion outwards. You're just working on as much circulation, hydrating that inside of the body through your breath. You can always take a break and get a sip of water or something. You can always do that anytime. So as you emphasize the weight of the body, then above that weight is the circulation internally from the breath. Okay, now with that left arm a little bit reachy, I want you to bring it down to the side of your body. And then get a feeling of kind of moving your heart towards the ceiling. Okay, so obviously this is a beginning of kind of flushing out. So I would be a little bit easygoing on removing the sand, maybe just kind of gently nudge it down so it drops to the right. And I sometimes like it resting on my thigh. Just let it be there. It's a nice anchor for the leg to help you get up. So then you just roll to the right and you take a moment of that twist. Now, if the ball is in your way, just move it. Okay. So take a little bit of turn. So that means the hands are on the other side of the bolster next to your blankets, or your fingers are kind of under it. And see that, sometimes when you're pinned down with that right thigh, you feel like stuck. So all this movement room in the center, we don't think of that as a lot of movement, right? Because we think of our legs and our arms, but it is your centerpiece, right? It is the center of gravity. Okay, now let's play with that a bit. So we'll take the sand completely away, and you're going to bring the left knee to the right knee and carefully turn so that you're on hands and knees. And you might prefer a blanket under your knees. I'm not so sure we're all going to need that. If you're on carpet, you probably don't at all. But I want you to have the hands so that your bolster is lengthwise, or you can call this spine-wise, underneath you. You don't want to be too close to a wall so that when you lie prone, that your feet might touch the wall. So you might scoot a little bit away, but we'll find out, won't we? You can always kind of surf out from the wall when we get to the prone position. But first, hands besides the bolster on the floor, fingers spread out. And as the tops of the feet are trying to relax, right? It's kind of funny when you have the feet tops down. That one ankle might be a little more rigid than the other. So this is a good one to kind of iron that out. And when you let the spine rock back and forth, I want you to work with kind of rock and roll with the spine here. So reach the chest forward and round the back. Okay, so get a feeling of the combination of movements of the chest, stretching the chest forward, and then moving into cat pose. Feel that rolling motion of your spine into your pelvis. And take a few more moments here. This is an easier way to do this, right? When your arms are right under the shoulders, they're sort of straight, right? There's some bending right in the chest area, but feel when you push. Okay. And your spine and your pelvis have a gift here of something that's holding them so you can rock and roll. All right. Now, if you didn't really have arms to help you with it, we'll see what it's like with tummy time. Okay, so we also have the bolster, so it makes tummy time a little more comfy. So I want you to lower onto your bolster and make it so that your feet touch the wall. Okay, so you do want a little wall space for this. You're going to lower down the ribs on the bolster. You don't want to be too close to the wall, but so that the ball of the foot on each foot touches the wall. Doesn't make sense to have one of them, but, and I want you to bring your blankies in and bring your elbows wide. Okay, you don't have to hold your elbows, but you can feel the hands in a stack. And then I like to stay with this one. My elbows are wide, my hands are stacked, basically. And I just lift up my head, looking forward. Okay, now feel if you can bring your feet farther apart. And then as you lower your head down to your hands, okay, feel just the breath. So the movement of the breath kind of pushing. And then feeling how the belly area has to actually push with the breathing. So it might feel like it goes outwards. It might feel like it pushes downwards. But a nice massage for the abdominal organs. Okay, now take a few moments when you Bring the hands down besides the bolster, elbows back. I always think of this as grasshopper. For whatever reason, it just senses that, or it's kind of insect-like, but your elbows are by the sides and your fingers spread out. And I want you to push into your hands, lift your head here a little bit. Be cautious about how much neck work you're doing. If you're getting kind of tired of it, you can tuck your chin towards your chest. But I want you to bring your arms off the ground so they stretch back besides you. Okay, like jet airplane wings here. So you're going to reach back with the arms and feel if you can bring your arms back towards the wall, but then lift them a little bit. Breathe. It only helps. This is one where it really is nice to be able to breathe. Okay, now hands spread out, down, elbows by the sides. Come up into a modified upward facing dog. So your hands pressed, and you can lower down and then bring them a little farther forward. I like that. It feels a little more comfy on my back. So a nice thing about having a practice is that, well, maybe you only practice when you come to a class, but you can also just feel like, oh, okay, I move my arms forward. This feels a little better in my spine circulation besides the spinal column. You can wriggle a little bit, kind of do a little bit of shifting side to side. Feel the suppleness of the circulation in that part of your back. It needs it, right, in the kidneys. Okay. Now, last time, come down, but push into the wall with your feet and lift the knees up, just the knees up, so the feet are still at the wall. It's a little bit more work, isn't it? So push, try to push back into the wall. Breathe. Maybe if you know the pose is only temporary, it will help. Fingers spread out, now knees down, and then lift up again, come back to table. And then let's move our bolster off to the side. Let's take a purposeful moment to put it away off to the side. And then I want you to have your hands forward, a little wider than shoulder distance. The knees come in closer towards each other, about hips distance. Stretch forward into up dog. You could use a blanket under your knees. And then push back, lengthen the back surface. Head touches down. Hairline touches down. Okay, walk your hands to the left side up towards about 11 o'clock on the left-hand side. Stretch out through that right rib head. Okay, let your head push into your right arm to relax the neck. And then walk your hands. Now this can be interesting. So if I put my weight a little forward on my hands, and then I walk on over, it's easier on my neck. So I want to be a little cautious on how the neck responds. So use the hand weight and then stretch over to about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock on the right hand side. Good. And feel where that length is on all left side area that's above the hips. Breathing. Okay, now as you walk the hands back forward, we're going to change it up here. We're going to take a couple blocks, so we might need to crawl around, but put them up high on the inside of your mat. And I want you to step your right foot between them. And then as you lean into that lunge, remember, if you feel like I need a blanket now under my knee, get it, okay? Or maybe you have a little pad that you use under your knees for things like this. Yeah, those little garden ones are good. So lean forward so the right knee is reaching above the ankle and maybe a little farther forward, but caution here. I want you to still feel when you lift up your head center and forward that you can press into the wall with your foot. So I'm a little bit on a little with curiosity on this one. I like to feel the knee down, but then after a while, I don't really like to feel my knee grind into the ground. So See if you can lift up the back knee, just so the knee is not pushing. Why would we want to force the bones into discomfort, right? So a little bit of caution. And I want you to stretch the right leg fully. So you're lengthening the front leg. So instead of the knee bending, you're pushing back, pushing down to your foot, of course. And then stretch the back heel and take a moment where you kind of feel your way into this. Reach the back heel so it's either closer to the ground, or for me, it's gonna be up at the wall a little bit, right on the baseboard, okay? Remember, gentle is the new advance. So find what's your range, go to where you can realistically just engage in the position, not feel like you want to get out the whole time. If you stop breathing, the pose is over. Okay, so get out if you're not breathing in it, but really feel how you lengthen the right leg. Try to straighten it out a little more and activate just simply the hips. I feel my right hip a bit. Okay, now bend through the right knee, move your chest a little forward, move your throat, move your chin. Inhale, exhale, push so the right leg straightens out, almost straightens for some of us. Let your head lean down. Inhale, lunging forward, chest centers forward. Exhale back. Good. Okay, now bend through the right knee and step the left foot to the right foot, not right on top, but next to it. And take a good stance of about hips distance, or a generous hips distance. You want to be generous. Spread out through the toes. And then you take a forward bend of choice. It could be hands on the blocks on top of your blankets. That's sometimes nice to do. Okay, you feel a natural, and that natural arch. Anterior tilt here. Some of us are going to really crave just letting our head lower down, so it's an inversion, head below the heart. Hands hold your elbows. Try to do the opposite crisscross as you remember doing earlier in class, the one you don't like to do. And when you lower down the weight of your head, feel the lift of the hips. You take a little challenge internally where the circulation might kind of stiffen up. You're trying to, again, kind of rock and roll. You're going a little forward and back on the roots of the toes. A little bit of momentum. I think the final part here is to let my face, my jaw, just feel that nice inversion. Okay, now relax the grip of the elbows. If you're doing that, if your hands are forward, you're already ahead of us. So we'll all take our feet closer and then place the blocks besides. They don't have to be right besides your feet. Wherever they end up and it's comfortable, okay? That's the key. So right leg stretches back. Now take caution, right? Go slow, kind of find your way towards the wall. And once you make it, you can aim the left knee above the ankle and just feel where you create that blend. It's really a curious one. So just moving my front leg in different angles affects quite a bit of the flexibility of the back leg. A little bit of the front leg, but it does really affect my back lower leg. So I like to kind of hit up the wall here just to feel the touch, the firm touch with my heel to the wall. Yes, maybe I've done before. I've tried to get my heel to the floor. Okay, that's honestly true. But I like feeling the weight. It's not weight bearing, right? You're not holding weights per se, but you are feeling resistance. So that's where it comes into the support for our bones. So creating resistance. So flush it out a little bit. Let the flesh of the left leg straighten out, trying to lengthen it. And then if you feel the hips kind of get a little tilted, okay, that's fine, that's natural. But see if you can aim for alternating, bending the left leg, inhale, maybe move your face to look forward, exhale, head down, Inhale forward. Exhale down. So you're shifting just the bend of the left leg. So I'm bending the left leg. I'm trying to keep my right heel at the wall, so that's my range I'm allowed to do. And then I stretch back. Or I stretch down. Okay, take one more time. We're going to end up with the left leg trying to straighten out for a bit. If you're feeling ambitious, you can always try to get the back heel towards the floor, but you know, if it just doesn't feel like it's ending up in a positive exploration, then stay with the heel a little up. I still feel some calf circulation. You can let us know how you feel about it. Okay, so lengthen through the left leg. Feel where the weight is. Okay, now we're going to get pretty hip oriented now. Okay. Heading to the hip orient. So I think some of us might have a blanket that's below, maybe not all of us. So what you'll need is, I think, you can opt for a bolster or a blanket under your legs coming up. So you decide. I want you to go into that lunge though again. So you're going to bend through the left knee, because we got to get the right knee down at some point. So we are saying each side has the offering. So right knee comes down to the blanket or the floor, and you keep that strong lunge with the left leg. Okay, so we're going to go into pigeon pose. Or if you don't like to do pigeon, there's other things you can do too, right? So I'll give you those offerings. So first things first, if I want to do pigeon with the bolster, all I do is I get my bolster. I think I prefer this with bolster. Underneath my left thigh, and I walk my left foot across, and then I sit down onto the bolster. It's much more height than a single blanket. But you could use a single blanket if you want a different support. It's just going to make the pose maybe a little more challenging and not as much cushioning. But when you go forward, I want you to bring your hands down, and you can use your bolster to support your hips, of course. You can also use your blankets to be underneath your arms, your elbows, and lean down. Okay, let's say you don't want to do pigeon. You still want to work on your hips. But you could also come down to take a seat any way you like. Just have a seat on your bolster. Cross the left leg forward or the right. And you can either have your blocks under your hands here, or you can lean forward here. This is a good option. I hesitate to say it's a modification because that sounds like it's lesser than, but I think it's a good option. So just it's an alternative. You know, it might feel like it develops a little bit more ease for the knee. When you're in pigeon, you can't really change how the knee presses down. So you could put like a ball or a block under both. You can have, you know, a ball on one side and a block on the other here if you like, and lean forward. So this is that option. And then if you're in pigeon, I think your only real variation you can do with your left knee would probably be just to put something under your left seat, like a blanket or a block. So if it's hurting your knee, I would say just get out of it and do the option. Not to try to make pigeon something that feels more comfortable if it doesn't. So take a moment here when you're tilting your body weight forward, either version, and noticing where the spine has this just kind of nice articulate curve. It's just a really interesting balance of curve in the back. Of course, if you're in the cross-legged position, that's a little more challenging, to be honest, for the curve. We tend to round the back on that one. So this one, there's not a lot of that because you have this hip opener. So it already advances into this lumbar bracket where it's really stable here. And then above that, you're going to have some right at the lumbar into the thoracic. A little bit of arch. Okay, now change sides. So if you are left hip for pigeon, you're going to bring the right leg across it in front, just sitting on your bolster or your blanket, whichever you're on, and then let the left leg stretch back. If you get there and you're like, oh boy, this is a lot, you could just sit and kind of go a little back side to side. Have to go right into something. Some people might even do cat cow in between or down dog. I didn't do down dog, did we? That's odd. Okay, so lean into it. You just never know what you're going to get in this, huh? If you're not interested in pigeon pose, but you still want to work on the hip, this is the pigeon version. And the seated cross-legged version will be right leg crossed forward or left, shin, and then go forward and lean. See, this is where that spine arch is a little, the typical position that you might observe is this, which is a big X. So try to get a little bit of arch if you're in the variation. In fact, you could use your blocks to help you balance that. Or they could be under the knees, okay? They're a little bit hard under the legs compared to the ball. It's usually one leg that needs it more than the other. But this one, you know, I've tried this with a ball before or a blanket. So, you know, the ball is nice because it's responsive surface. It really, you can push into it a little bit. It has some, you can jostle the tissue. So this is kind of nice too. Gives a little tactile feeling. So you can always try that. If it makes it too easy, you could notice what that's about. Maybe it's not okay to push the joint that much for you. So maybe a little bit of cushion under the rear is good. And now center onto that emphasis of the position, the intensity into the hip. Breathing. Okay. Now let's take the moment when we shift. If you've got something under your rear, you're going to move it away. And we'll come up, take the left leg, cross it forward. And then I want you to come out of this one. You're going to turn kind of all the way around. And let's take our seat. So we do a full leg reach with our foot at the wall. Okay. So this one, I think 2 blankets is, I like 2 blankets personally. It's just a little bit easier, but 1 or 2 blankets under your seat. So what your distancing requirement here is you first have to make sure your feet can touch the wall. That's kind of important. So I bend my knees a bit because I know when I lift up, it's going to give more ease to my legs. So I bend my knees. First things first, make sure your ball is nearby on the left side and your sand. Okay. You might want a block instead of a ball. Like let's say you don't have a ball, you might use the block. So we'll find out. Now push the blanket really close, like you're about ready to use it as you're going to put it on or something. Okay, push it real close, put your hands to the back, and then you're going to sit up on it. Sometimes this works out well. And you're going to stretch the right leg to the wall and turn to the left. So the left knee, right, the left thigh part, it's on the blanket, okay? This might feel too high and too easy, but I'm just like to work with the height so that my spine is just very cozy with it. It's not harsh on my back, okay? Now I imagine you're farther away from the wall than I am because of my height, but you might play around with this one. I've seen some instruction on this where the blanket is a little bit kind of, it's a little diagonal under your seat from the right sitting bone to the left thigh, so you can pivot it. So it kind of creates a little more comfort. So you add your sand to the left thigh, and some of you might use a ball under the left knee. Yeah, I don't feel like I need that today, but I'm going to see first how the sand works on the top of the thigh. Okay. Yeah, so get a feel now. If the sand weighs you down and you start to round your back, then you might not use it. So I want you to just really be honest about that. You can move the sand kind of to the center of the thigh. Feel if you tend to kind of go here and round. I want you to try to stay up. Pushing the wall with your foot is going to help a lot with that. So if the back of your knee is feeling a little cranked on, this is one where you could put the ball under as well, Right, you could do this. We'll put it right under the knee, and this makes it so I got no hyperextension. Zip. Kind of interesting. I'm gonna play with that. Okay, some of you will just say no ball at all. Lean to the right leg, tilt down. You're gonna hold on to, you're gonna put a block, sorry, besides the right lower leg. The block could be low, 3 heights, right? You decide. Okay, I'm gonna lean down. Yep, I'm going to the high one. And then I'm gonna lean and bring my head to my hand and stretch the left arm up, up and away. Ah, that feels great for the ribs to explore this side reaction. The left arm goes behind my back. And I just emphasize where the, literally emphasize the side band. Like, you know, when we did side stage, you had that side reach, you were lying into the props. Now it's a little different reliance. Yeah, and just kind of see if you got anywhere with that understanding. Maybe you just feel like you're just starting all over here at the side. But reset the circulation of your breath. Once you get into the shape, kind of recenter. No anticipation. So prop yourself up so you don't have that mindset of anticipation of getting out so much. We will get out, but use the props to really help support your breathing basin here. It's really important. Okay, now with that left arm back behind you, so you open up through the chest. You're gonna come up, and I would just try to come up where you can feel this left side of your neck, kind of a little bit of tone. So you gotta let the left arm help you out. So you wanna reach with that arm and then come up and bring the left leg is gonna be supported. So my right hand holds my left knee, and I branch through the ribs to turn to the left. So I'm creating rotation. It's pretty subtle though to feel that twist, and deepening it is not required. So if you can emphasize that you hold onto the knee, you breathe, and you just feel where that circulation comes into the spine. Just another breath. Exhale. Great. And then when you come out, just let your body roll a little bit with the shoulders. Maybe let your head tilt side to side. And then when you come back forward, we're going to set up for the next side. But first things first, just 2 feet to the wall. Okay. So if the blankets, you're kind of on edge with it, get on edge with the blanket is good. But caution for the knees, right? I don't want to slam the legs down. I don't mind having a little bend, that's fine. But when I lean into it, see if you can anticipate this back line really lengthening in the legs. So if we didn't get to dog pose, this will be our awareness of the back of the legs like you get in dog pose. I'll take this one. So if you need to get closer to the wall, get closer with your whole foot position. Some people might want to scoot closer so they feel everything at the wall, but that's up to you. You don't have to touch the wall with your hands. There's no requirements here. What is interesting is to look at your knees, and if they're starting to go closer together, I would be a little worried, right? And this is a habit, right, that we stand. If we stand, we notice our knees are squeezing in. I want you to actually viscerally kind of manipulate them. So bring your thumbs just below the inside of the knees and just massage that area so you're rolling it out. Okay, trying to roll it out all the way up above the knees. And then it's almost like you visualize there's a ball between the knees, and it's like 1/3 of the size of the ball would be. Don't try to cut your ball though. Then it won't be one. And just try to keep that space. If it gets up into your hip, okay, that's good. Right? We need to find that whole experience of the legs. Try to keep them apart, stay apart, knees. Don't even try to roll together. Push into your feet. If they're starting to turn in, just notice. I'm trying to keep the feet so they're straight up and my knees not rolling in. I know what it's like. Okay. Just sit up so you're tall. You're not trying to go forward to the wall. You're just trying to sit on those bones. All right. Inhale up arms. Inhale your up in arms here. Stretch your arms out and back. And then change sides. So right foot into the left inner thigh, twist a little bit to your right side. Again, you can put a ball under your knee. And if this feels too excessive, it's only making it easier. It's not making it harder. Block besides the left leg, stand on the right thigh. And we head over to the left side. So play with it. You might do a little bit of this kind of pretend flying shape shifting. And you might decide I'm going right in. Okay, now I imagine one side is a little different than the other. So treat them the same when you go in, even if one feels really fluid. See if you can use the same height of the block. And as you reach that right arm, you can go behind your back right away. You decide, head to your hand or not, you choose. I like to use my right hand to my right side of my spine to the actual ribs and kind of massage that area with my knuckles a little bit downwards. Just a little bit, nothing excessive, no hitting on my bones or anything, but just pushing and nudging. Right? I'm not trying to, knock into my back, but just sliding down and nudging those tissues to lengthen. I know it feels interesting to nudge down to the back and then to feel the pelvis center, almost like a cat pose. Kind of fun. Okay. Now, when you come up, turn to your right. I don't think you have any other choice, but you're going to the left hand to the right knee, the right hand to the floor, or it could reach down to a block and kind of nudge the right shoulder back. I know you might see things here in your space, but you might close your eyes and just find where you explore that rotation. If you feel like you lose positioning into your left foot, you might go without the ball. I'm not required, but as long as you don't have a full kind of pressing down of the back of the knee. I suppose you could always hold the underside of the knee with your hands and kind of squeeze it so that it doesn't stretch down all the way. It's kind of interesting. It's nice when you can do that visceral manipulation on your own. Just, it's your circulation to help out. Okay, you can go there. You can put your hand on the knee. You choose. Breathe. Fill up the ribs. Push into your foot to the wall. Push. Good. So we want to keep that pressure where we're going in the final spinal here. So release the touch on the left hand to the right knee. Turn forward to the wall. Take the sand away. And now we're going to come down onto our back. So I want you to bring your bolster to the wall so the feet are on top of it, straight across horizontal. And then push back your blankets. Lower down onto your back. Only one blanket under your head. Okay. You're a little cautious about that. One blanket under your head. Okay. Now we've got a ball and maybe a block. So if you have something to put between the knees, it could be either. And some people prefer the block on this, even though they might have both. Okay, so it's kind of it's interesting because you tend to squeeze into it. So that maybe has, I think everyone's just gives different discussions on that. Hands at the thighs, the top of the thighs, right at the hip connection. So the heel of my hand is right at the hip bone. And just be here and do a little bit of cat-cow. So you're alternating, moving the tailbone under. It's really tiny. It's like kitty calf. It's not like a full cat-cow. Just kind of learning the ropes here. So a little bit of motion at the back of the pelvis, alternating that rhythm of arching and flexing. Now push down into your feet at the bolster and lift up the hips, full lift. Stretch your arms back overhead. Inhale. Exhale, lower the spine. And the arms are last to go down. Go at your own pace. Let's take just a couple more of those. So alternating drawbridge, lifting the hips. And make sure the blanket is just under your head, not under your shoulders. Good. Okay, one more time. Lift up the hips. Now, when you lift up, breathe. I know the challenge sometimes here is you get the lift and then you stiffen up, like you hold it all. So breathing. There's a lot of toning going on in your glutes and your legs and your pelvis. It's like resistance 101 is this pose, huh? Okay, now when you lower down, I want you to bring your knees towards your chest. So squeeze the ball if you have it a little itty bit and bring the knees towards your chest. And just let the legs straighten up towards the ceiling. Get a lift of the legs. And whatever you have between them is fine. You don't have to access squeezing powers, but there's some potential of the position of the knees is really interesting, right? When you were sitting moments ago, you look down, there may have been a little more turning in of the knees. This one, it's not happening because you got something between them. There's no option. So keep the legs in more of a straight version than a bent version. And then if you have that ball, I want you to remove it, whatever you got between. Yeah, put it on over to the side. And then I want you to get a feeling from the inside, closing your eyes, the sensation of the legs upside down. And if you even notice any perspective around the knees, maybe it just feels like your feet are up and that's that. There's nothing else interesting going on. As long as the knees are comfy, that's the key here. You don't feel too much. If they're inflamed, you might feel pressure because of the reverse flow of fluid in the legs, but feeling that emphasis of legs up, pelvis centered and easy. Okay, now bring the feet close together so they're touching the inside of the feet. Flex the feet, hands are down the floor, lower than the hips. And then I want you to let the legs be together and lower. So from 90 degrees, they're going to go down to maybe 60, maybe 40 for some that are feeling ambitious, but use your lower abdominal muscles here. Really feel some circuitry there. And then I want you to press the palms down. Feel the elbows move a little bit outwards and then bring the legs straight back up. Inhale, belly full. Exhale, let the legs shift a little bit down. I don't want you to overdo it. Just really feel how the muscles in the belly get a little bit crazy here. And they don't even know exactly how to tone themselves. So you can put a hand at the below the navel area and just notice if it's bulging, lifting up. So come back straight up with 90 degrees. Feel how the belly can kind of center a little bit farther down and towards its kind of, you could say, seated position, belly seat. So inhale, belly lifts. And exhale, belly towards the spine, just towards it, and let the legs go farther down. Okay. Once the belly starts to get really, really shaky and it just cannot control that position, then I think that's your message. Go back up with the legs and relax your belly. So just think of these exercises that way. Bend the knees, lower your feet, gently let the spine center into the pelvis, that lower basin. Okay, and then push the bolster to the right side of your mat. And hopefully you can push it and kind of nudge it so it's lengthwise on that side. You turn it so it's no longer horizontal, it's straight up by the side of your mat. And then I would scoot a little bit back from the wall. So you got plenty of space on your mat to do this position. Let the right leg release down. I don't like it to be perfectly straight. I just like to stretch it down and then bend it towards the right and then swing the left leg over to the bolster. All right, so let the back ease, especially at the stomach area that you were just pulling around. Just let that get a nice stretch, crossover, obliques. Okay, you can use a ball and a sandbag on this one. So make sure the bolster is really supporting you. Then add your ball, sacrum area. Then add your sand to the outer left thigh. Okay. You know, this one I really like my blanket under my head. So if you weren't using that for bridge pose, you might want to have something under your head for sure. And then stretch the left arm open, breathing, and just feel the cross fibers here between the ribs, between the solid feeling of the chest. And you might feel like this area of the heart is kind of like a shield, but there's quite a bit of movement, you know, indicated just by these shapes. So feel that transfer of movement. And then maybe let your head roll to the left a little bit and just simply take in the circulation from the pose. If there's anything that's kind of holding, let it relax. And now head back and center. Move the ball. Okay, and then last move is really the sand. So I would put it up to your ribs if you can, and just let it lay there. And then that way, when you go to the second side, you really are isolating below the ribs to create the turn. So I want you to just feel that if you don't like the sand, just take it off. There's no have to. But sometimes this perspective can be interesting because a sandbag shouldn't make you feel like you're harmed or you want to use it as resistance for, you know, the weight training for the breathing muscles, right? And if you haven't done sandbag breathing for a while, it's a good one to. I have a little handout on just sandbag breathing. It's a good thing to do every few days, just to put the sandbag on and move the bolster now to the left side, cross the right leg over. I like to use the ball first and then the sand on my side of my leg, but some people do the opposite, I think. So take the sand onto that outer right thigh and then adding that ball. If it's not added the right way, change it. Let the right arm open and then let your head roll to the right. And just feeling where the weight of your brain turning to the right, right? So noticing that it is weight and what's moving between that area and the chest is your spine too. Brain stem, spine. So keep it simple with the movement. Feel where the weight is on that leg. Yeah, having the pin and stretch kind of feel here is, I think it can feel really supportive of becoming a little more flexible in the hip joint. So just noticing if you push down that thigh with the sand, you have to kind of let that happen and feel what's above it, what's around the sand area. Let it help loosen up. Okay, now train the focus. So one side is to the right, one side of your lower side is to the left. It's opposites. Now we're going to merge it basically upside down to reverse the effects of gravity on the heart. So when I take the ball, maybe the sand first, maybe the ball first, whatever's first, I'm going to slide the sand away and push it towards the wall. So just kind of put it on the ground, goes to the wall area. And then I would let you choose. If you want to roll into your back, squeeze the knees in, and then roll to the side and come up. You kind of have to scan how your back is responding now. I like to keep going where I'm going sometimes. So I let my body roll left, and then I take the bolster to the wall and simply slide my blanket to the wall as well behind me. If you've got your other blanket, you want that on your core, pull that in. And then bring your rear up to the wall. So you want to have seat at the wall, like the rear, sitting zone area to the wall. And then roll into a little cannonball shape. And then you almost roll off the side of the bolster sometimes, but it's pretty easy peasy. Your emphasis is to get upside down. So an upside down doesn't mean seat to the wall. So some people seem to think it does. So I feel like I keep relearning that when I try, I gotta get my seat to the wall, but that's not the real emphasis here. It's just getting upside down. So if there's a space between that and it bothers you, that's one thing. I've seen it taught where there's a bolster here between the legs and the wall. I see that often taught with Iyengar method. So if you want something between to fill that gap, you can always like maybe put like a thick blanket or something. Get more props. Place the sand on the feet and let the legs stretch up. And get a feeling that you are actually trying to stretch them up, right? And if the sand is not feeling that it's at a good spot, I think most of us probably get the sand close to the heels. I like it a little bit higher, so I'm stretching my calves. The circulation kind of tips over, and then something that kind of nestles on my core, whether it's another sandbag or a blanket. And then if you have an eye pillow over your eyelids, as long as they're closed, or that means they're stretching, doesn't it? When they're over your eyes, eyelid stretching. And emphasize that reaction inside, reversing that gravitational pull by having the legs upside down. Just feel the belly move with the breath. Feel the weight of the pelvis, which is interesting because there's legs that are in some way above it versus below it in this perspective. So to have that sand on the feet truly reverses the lymph, just that lymphatic drainage, right? Stimulates the flow of lymph in the groins. Arms are below the level of the heart. The heart rate can slow down. Let your head maybe nod side to side if you don't have an eye pillow on. Feel how your head actually does roll side to side, noticing what circulates in your neck when you go side to side with your head. It can be really interesting, just the gentle stretch of our neck. And our head goes one side to the next. And then in center, breathe slow. Exhale completely. So with that in-tune focus, we're going to shift our feet a little bit away from the wall. If you have an eye pillow, slide that away. And then second, bend the knees and take the sand off of your feet to the floor. Not on you anymore. Knees hug in towards the core body. Kind of feel how this is an easy knee hug, right? When you have your hips lifted. Maybe a bit of a massage in your digestive tract if you got a blanket on here. And then roll to the side and let your hands help push you up. So take a moment seated on the bolster. Feel the spine connection to the pelvis and the pelvis connection to the spine. How that grounding root of the pelvis, bring your hands up to meet in front of the heart. May this practice be of benefit to others. Feeling the focus inside, gather with a breath. And exhale, bowing into that space behind your heart.